Welcome to the Spark of Madness podcast. This is the last Westworld pod until, I don't know when. When is season 3 coming out?
I guess early 2020.
Is that your guess, or is that what you know?
That's my guess because next year they have Game of Thrones. There's no reason to stack it up against Game of Thrones. And then maybe in the fall, but I would guess spring.
Wouldn't it be awesome?
I guess early 2020.
Wouldn't it be awesome in the finale of Game of Thrones that you see the Man in Black just wandering around, Westeros?
Just in the background.
I'll bet you anything. If you YouTube hard enough, you'll find it.
Yeah, where is he? Where is he doing? What's he doing over there?
So, well, we can theorize that's many seasons away, probably.
He's a White Walker.
Unless they decide to squeeze it into winter next year, there's no reason why they go up against
No, but winter doesn't make sense for the West.
I don't disagree. That's why I would say February 2020.
Okay. Well,
you heard it here first.
Yes, that's when season 3 will come out. We just saw the end of season 2. Then you and I watched it together on Sunday.
Yeah, we held hands.
And so we kind of know each other's overall opinion of the finale, which has kind of blown up, maybe not blown up the internet, but it is a very controversial episode. And so, Brandon, I'm wondering what your kind of overall thought was.
Overall thought of the finale itself was I liked it. I liked the way it buttoned up some of the stuff. I had no idea how they were going to close some of the things that they had kind of created. And I know there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of contention online of people who feel like they did or didn't do a good job of that. I personally, knowing what I think Westworld is, it's a puzzle show. It's a puzzle box show. That's how I watch it, and that's how I enjoy it. So to me, having those puzzle pieces put together and kind of, having that aha moment and seeing how they put everything together, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
So, okay. So, I guess you could, when you say they put the puzzles together,
sure.
I feel like it's like, here's this one, and then in the background there's like you find out that your little jigsaw puzzle, it was like this, and then there's like a 500 other pieces behind you. That's just like phase 2. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I feel like that came through for us, Ben. Like, especially with the post credits at the very end of the episode, we were just kind of like scratching our heads a little bit.
But when you sit down and let it simmer, you put it together. Okay, that makes sense now. After you put it together and watching other people explain it to you. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
You broke it down for me. That
well,
what's sense.
What are some of the elements when you guys were watching together that was hitting you funny, Matt? And maybe we can talk about them and see if there's any that aren't.
Well, Matt was hitting me funny, literally.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to get into the.
He was like, ha ha. Wasn't too funny.
I was going to do rubber chicken. I was hitting you with funny.
Whatever you want to.
So yeah. So whenever you want to get started.
Whatever you want to call it, rubber chicken, whatever.
Yeah, I would really, the confusing elements were at the very end for me. I followed how they were trying to bring things together timeline wise. Mm-hmm. I followed what they were doing with the door, the literal portal. I followed all that. I followed the water, and, like how they strung together, and even Bernard's plan.
Egypt references with the water. Like there's a lot of references to it.
Really, it came down.
I think the way it was shot. I think you guys might even reference when we were looking ahead at the shots, the kind of the Moses.
The Exodus and like the parting the sea.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think a lot of that
you
was
called
intentional.
that out. Yep.
Check out this part.
Really, for me, the confusing stuff all came at the end, which really was more like opening more cans of worms, more puzzle boxes to go forward.
Sure. Are they really worms, or are they host? Host worms.
Yeah, host or yeah. They have to mind. You cut it in half, and they live separately.
More host. What is it? I don't know what it is.
That's actually kind of an interesting.
What's one of them that?
So,
are there any of them that you still are noodling on?
I'm noodling on them more for their implication. So when it comes to and maybe I'm wrong. And so in the moment, the confusion was really, was everything I just watched, do I need to reinterpret everything I just watched? As, were they hosts the whole time? Was Ed Harris a host the entire time?
But he's not.
I
think someone made that clear in a synopsis I watched.
Okay, explain. Why do you think that?
So because they literally showed him being survived, at the end. So that's the real him. He was still that was the real him
on the beach.
On the beach, but that was the one that we saw through this whole timeline is the real him. The one that we saw at the very end credits is not the real him. That's the Delos version of him that's trying to live forever.
Do you agree with this?
I agree with that, and I think there are clues. I mean, you're right as far as there being lots of people with different opinions on it, but I think there are clues in the scene we were shown. When he's walking down in there, you see the same, theoretically the same forge and everything we've seen, but it's like decrepit, right? It's old, it's dusty, it's super dirty. There's even in the dialogue, there's even comments that it's a long time.
And that's the AI reference you're talking about, right?
That to me is the AI reference, if we want to go there.
I think it's,
so,
I mean...
Okay, at the end of the movie, well, before we start there, so at the end of this post-credit scene, we see the man in black. He's talking to what appears to be his daughter, or at least the visual appearance matches that of his daughter.
Which we know she's officially dead, right? Or do we?
Given that, I would say that both of the humans in which represented the visuals we were seeing, both passed because they're so far in the future.
But did he shoot her? Like, did he really kill her?
In my opinion, human man in black shot human daughter.
She's dead,
and that was what we were seeing. I think the clip was, if you will, we were seeing him in the loop where he's being kind of analyzed and whatnot. Was when he got back up after, I think he was with Dolores where the gun went off and she had sabotaged it and it hurt his hand. I think when he got back up and was by himself, that was the beginning of what we saw where he went down and then he's in that.
Yeah.
That's
so my whole philosophy on that, we know from the dialogue and from the scenery, we have reason to believe it's way into the distant future.
Yeah.
To me, now there's two different angles on this, but they're both very similar. To me, Dolores is one. Way off in the future, robots have taken off. They've wiped out humanity, right? This is super, super far in the future. They're going back, looking through, trying to find out the origins, much like we go back in time looking at caveman drawings and stuff, the origins of humanity.
Centuries.
They're going back looking for the origins of how their species started. And Man in Black is part of what they're investigating to understand what happened. And that's my reading. The reason why, to me, that connects to AI is at the end of the movie AI, the robot boy who was down in the bottom of the sea, I think at the end of the episode, we then see eons later, Earth is froze over. I believe there's it's a robot life form, which in my opinion is basically the robots have it. I don't necessarily think it's alien.
I thought they were aliens.
They dig, and it could be, but they dig down and they find the robot boy and they kind of bring him back to life and put him in a simulated environment to understand. I had the same, to me it was kind of the same themes going on in this scene.
I don't know if I totally follow the rationale of it.
Okay.
Just...
Rational
if they can create a library, maybe in the 40, 50 years from now, whatever this timeline is, it's like
I think it might be 4,000.
All memories in a database. Like if they can catalog human beings down into like a book visually into this forge like library, it seems odd to me that they would need to investigate something. If it's all cataloged, maybe that's like the reliving.
They're running him through because they talk about how they're doing it multiple times. So,
okay, yeah.
I mean, it's not just one time shot.
Sure.
For whatever they're doing and for whatever purpose they appear to be running through it. I think that could also be that humans have won and they're trying to understand how their enemy started, and so they're doing a similar investigation.
Understand the enemy.
So, just because we're here, I have a handful of comments about Man in Black and specifically what they did. So, just with regards to that very specific scene, didn't it look like he kind of had like a sly smile at the end when she goes fidelity?
Yeah, because that was the same thing that he was putting Delos through, the fidelity test they called it, right?
Yeah.
And so he was like, oh shit.
So is he realizing that?
And that was the same time we got the callback to fidelity. Dolores, when she's testing Bernard in the simulation, also referred to their testing as a fidelity test.
So, but in this case, though, was he smiling because he realized that they had achieved it? That it was now successful. They had because I feel like a big open-ended question still for me is, have they figured out how to permanently put hosts, like digitally put minds into bodies?
Well, we don't know
that
yet.
was a big problem, and we see that happening. But are we just to assume that right now they still have like a temporary
because
vessel to inhabit?
I don't think we have an answer.
Okay,
I think so too.
And that's kind of why I'm saying when he has a smile that they had to your point, this is the future after Dolores has succeeded. They even reference both visually with the decrepit basement, but she says the system's gone. It's gone. Like everything's gone. And so I feel like this is okay. We finally figured it out. To put it into a body to live forever. I think they have achieved it.
If they had figured it out, I don't think they'd still be doing fidelity tests.
True, but maybe this is like
the one.
I don't know. Maybe they're like almost there.
Could be. Maybe they had just achieved it, and we were seeing that moment. But I got to smile more of the irony of it. My favorite line of the episode is when he first comes down and sees her, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm in the thing, aren't I?"
Yeah.
That line and the way, and especially the way he delivered it, was just you hire Ed Harris for that line and its delivery.
Yep.
In my opinion.
So the other part is, I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to feel that if they undercut. So part of my it was both confusion and like disappointment. So in our last episode when we were trying to come up with the predictions, and like recapping the last 4 episodes, I was thinking that if they made him a host, it would open up way too much during that time. Like if everything we saw was him being a host. Sounds like we kind of agreed that it's not, but just the fact that they opened it up as, well,
we don't know for sure.
Yeah,
we don't know for a fact that he wasn't a host when he killed his brother.
There's so much mystery to it.
Well, he kept digging it on his arm to see if he was a host.
Right.
Yeah, we were never given that detail.
We were stopped in that. We have now technically he dug in his arm and he did not find a port.
You know what's
that doesn't mean
you know what's the irony about that whole situation there? I just thought of it just now. Do you remember in Beautiful Mind when what's his name?
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe was digging through his arm. He was hallucinating Ed Harris the whole time as the CIA agent, whatever. Yeah, and now he's probably like thinking about Russell Crowe. So Russell Crowe's going to be the next Westworld in the background. Yeah, he thinks Russell Crowe's real. So like that's the parallel.
You're onto something here. Jeez. Well, so the Man in Black's my favorite character in the show, and like I was so interested in how they were going to work in his wife's suicide, and I loved how they did that, and how he was like, you were onto me the whole time, and it wasn't this big like amazing reveal. It was really like you just knew I was a bad person the whole time, and all the dialogue and the scenes with Lawrence and how he gets free and shoots the guy, and he makes him explode when he drinks the nitro, and how he's like, I am death, and all, like to see all of that then coalesce into this like, oh, he's this kind of confounding, like muddied. It didn't tie together for me. It came together in like a very and maybe they felt like they tied that knot for his character arc this season earlier than the finale, but to then just like jump us in a post-credit scene that just opens up a lot of possibilities was a little bit like, oh, really?
I think if you have Ed Harris in your show, he's going to be a central figure, right? And so obviously in season 1, the big twist, the big reveal was that the Jesse Simpson acted, the William was the Man in Black, and that connection, and the aha, William. In season 2, I think, again, you still have Ed Harris in your show. He's still going to be a central point. I think some of that stuff like the I am death and the other things, we were constantly, might not be the right word, but we were frequently questioning, what is he? Is he something beyond human? Is he, I mean, there was talk about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And there's another reference to that also in the show.
Very
but talking about him being
episode.
Specifically death.
Yeah.
Right? There was talk about the existentialism angle of his character's meaning. Talk about whether or not he's a host or not. So I think there was a lot of that stuff that was probably laying in and shot in a way to keep the intrigue about him, even if it wasn't necessarily central to where they were going to go with him.
So do you feel like at various points he was alternating between host and not host throughout this various seasons, or not? Because doesn't I don't know, I'm interested in what you think about.
I think there are definitely elements that there were clues you could pick up and pick up, but I think ultimately where I landed was that he wasn't a host until the post credits.
Yeah.
Well, with him. Didn't Anthony Hopkins at the start of the season via the I think the first episode of this season via his little kid version.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him that the door is meant for him. Like,
told him
this game is meant for him.
Told him that, and the other big line from there was that your story begins where it ends and ends where it begins. So,
a lot of Alice in Wonderland
for sure
references.
I think that's a really good call out.
I need some explanation, because isn't the door literally the portal?
The door there for that, yes, but and maybe there's other things still to drop in the overall story that includes William that involves the door. So it could be that the reference to the game that he's playing goes beyond that. But you could argue in a very meta way the door at the end of it that he went through, it wasn't the same door as far as like the rift door, but the door he went through into the elevator is where we saw.
There's a garage door.
Yeah. No, but that's where at the beginning of the post-credit scene we see him getting off the door of the elevator.
That's true. Yeah, and then there's another door, very clear, like this is the other door.
And then there's the
Bernard.
doors. Damn it.
Yeah, there's lots.
Well, and there was all
doors.
sorts of different allusions to what that final goal was, right? We heard the Forge, we heard the Valley Beyond, we heard it referred to as a weapon that Ben called out last week, specifically. I think Dolores had referred to it as a weapon.
What was that?
Basically the Valley Beyond weapon. When we were trying to figure out exactly where they were at.
It's funny because when they go into the Valley Beyond, the Great Valley, as I call it, which is the same symbolism.
So I did hear that
like
the writers
heaven.
referred to that as the Sublime. That was their reference for that other word, heaven.
It's
I
heaven.
think digital heaven is very good.
It's exactly heaven. So your digital soul goes into your consciousness goes into this realm. Like it's a metaphor that's been existing forever.
Little Easter egg, if you would. Do you remember the scene where they were in one of the timelines? They were pulling back bodies. I think it was the final timeline, and they made a reference to how about a third of the hosts had no data at all. They were completely clean.
Yeah.
Those were the hosts that went to the Sublime, to the heaven.
Was Teddy that way though, or was the
I don't
time
know
jump?
I don't know that we knew specifically.
No, but they showed him in Sublime.
Hold on. It was Teddy that way. We didn't see a technician working on Teddy to know.
But we saw a dead body
of
of Teddy.
Yeah.
But we definitely saw Teddy in the Sublime. Yes.
Yeah.
No, Teddy.
So when we that makes me think now about kind of the future of the various different characters we saw. So we call them Bernarnold.
Bernarnolds.
We've heard him be called that way, his combination. What are we going to call? We're just going to call her Dale from now on. Dolores Charlotte Hale.
Well, I think she's back in her own body now. So I think
good. That's good.
At the very end,
she was in her body.
At the very end, we saw Dolores and Charlotte as two separate entities.
So
okay.
Here's a thought about that. What are there two Dolores?
I have a thought here too. Yeah.
What are there two?
I don't
Dolores?
think that was Charlotte in her own body.
I don't think it was Charlotte in her own body either.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think it was two Dolores.
Because she had four little mind balls.
She had five.
She had five.
Yeah.
But what if she can copy
herself? We
herself?
have reason to believe one was Bernard. So she would have four total, herself and then four others.
But Bernard's there. She's talking to Bernard.
But how did she get there?
Right,
He was
that's
one
the
of the balls
Bernard.
she
Exactly.
So she had five balls. One of them's Bernard, and then the other four, I think, are left for us to. I think they're left for us to speculate. But I believe one of them was in that Charlotte body that we see. Now, something you guys hinted at earlier, which I think is a big thing in the show that they've not really touched on, because they're digital data, there isn't a reason to believe they couldn't have more than one going at the same time. Same thing when they were testing James Delos. They could have been running hundreds of tests at the same time because he's digital data.
And Ford's not dead, is he? He can't be dead.
Probably not.
Maybe one of those balls is Ford. But it can't be because the red balls are supposed to be like the
meta goes back to how healthy Anthony Hopkins is.
Yeah.
Is he healthy enough to be acting in a show that won't come out for another couple of years?
Yeah, I think he's probably.
I think this was a better transition out of the show for him than last season, actually. Which is saying something, because this dramatic like death as like my creations can go off on their own now. This was like this very kind of poetic, like I'm imagining him, like, and we had this theme of memory. You live as long as you're remembered all the way through, and it was, we spent half the season of Bernard literally being programmed and hearing from Ford and being told what to do, and then he writes himself out of the code, and he takes on the free will that they've been hinting at the whole season, and how they are more evolved than we are because they actually have free will versus humans not having free will, but they still have that kind of mystery that, like, why is Ford all of a sudden here? But it was in his imagination the whole time, and it ends on the beach, and it's just like I loved that.
To me, I got a big reverse footprints in the sand feeling from that whole scene.
What is that? What is that?
Yeah,
So,
you were teasing that because
footprints
I
on
don't
the
get
sand.
it.
Footprint. I don't know if fable's the right word or saying it's basically a theme that, you know, where someone's going through troubled times. They talk about how there are two sets of footprints, and then when I was in my most troubled time, they're talking about God not being with them and how they only saw one set of footprints. And then at the end of the thing, God says, "No, my son, when you were going through troubled times, I was carrying you. That's why there's only one footprints." I got a reverse footprints from the sand in this, in that instead of thinking he was alone and looking at the footprints and saying, "Where were you, God? You weren't there for me." It's the reverse. He thought that Ford was with him, but no, it was actually him the whole time. He was imagining it. And I think that symbolism, both because we've heard referred to as God, the references back in season 1 to the bicameral mind, which was when we were talking to yourself, early man thought they were talking to God. All that to me culminates in an intentional thing. The fact it's shot on the beach, I feel like that's all very intentional.
Well, and it gets, yes, for sure. There's enough other biblical imagery, like
For sure.
very
The Moses.
explicit imagery, I guess. But I guess for him was this his real awakening, I guess?
He being Bernard?
Yeah, Bernard, yeah.
I think,
or do we think he was
sincere,
before?
I think it
'Cause
was
I
a
don't-
sincere realization that Ford was not with him. As far as awakening and being sentient, I don't necessarily think this was his moment of sentience.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the difference between sentience and being aware versus like real free will, I suppose.
Well, then you might be getting a little bit more metaphysical than I'm even ready to go.
Sure.
If the realization that what he thought was a higher being talking to him is not real is the definition of sentience, then yes. But I didn't take that as a sentient moment.
Maybe it's the difference between
Just don't-
having a
Just wait, I got more.
No, it's too expensive.
an ability to like impact or create beyond your world or something. Because I feel like there's a difference now. Bernard and Dolores have achieved this other level. I guess Maeve to some degree, but
I think Maeve.
I feel like they're on another.
I think Maeve in the First Nation guy, or Ghost Nation, I call him First Nation, which is the same thing, I guess. Are the same? They're going through the same algorithm, you know, the same. Except the problem with her, she's died more times than anybody, and he hadn't died at all. I love that scene, but I think they've reached a higher plane, a higher free will in different ways. Because Ford actually went and said, "I don't know what's happening to you," you know. That's that whole sequence when he, you know.
Well, I'm curious.
I'm drowning here. No respect.
Where do you think? So we kind of have this path now into the real world for Dolores and.
No, not a path. I mean, they're there.
Right.
We're led to believe
We're gonna probably.
It wasn't
Frank
widescreen.
House, by the way.
Yeah. Right. Dolores and Bernard are kind of kind of know what their trajectory is, or at least where we think they're going to end or start the season. I suppose. Where do you think Maeve is going to start?
She's gonna start. Okay, so those the two
Felix and Sylvester.
Felix. They're going to.
And Sylvester.
They're gonna Sylvester and Felix. Felix the cat and Sylvester the cat.
That's
oh
intentional.
My!
Yeah.
Really? I didn't even really think about
Oh
that.
yeah.
Really? There you go.
That was the last season.
I never would have thought.
Really?
About that.
I didn't even think about that. I'm like, that just whew. Reference. Wait till the Harry and the Henderson references come in. I can't wait for that. But no, Felix and
Sylvester.
Sylvester.
On the beach, they're told basically.
They're gonna revive her.
They're told to pick among the hosts who to salvage,
I'm like,
and
you're
they
attached to
make
it.
a look either right before that scene or right after they're looking at Maeve.
So they'll salvage her and get her back up online.
I think there's an opportunity we might see Hector come back through that same mechanism. I think there's opportunities for any of them. I do think, however, anybody that we've seen in the Sublime is not coming back.
Oh yeah.
I think they're gone.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think that's
Their story.
maybe it's just a gut feel, but I think that's kind of an epitome. I think that's kind of like the epitome of where a perfect destination, a heaven, if you will. who's going to then pull them back from heaven and force them to...
And where is...
And how would they get them anyway? Because they explicitly said they would basically be unreachable.
Well, where is it? Where is the Sublime? Where does she shoot them? To Mars? Where is it? Through the satellites?
I don't know.
Where is it?
That was an odd detail to me that just felt like they're protected now.
What?
They're up there.
It was a Star Trek 2 moment where
safe.
it's like you should want to kill Spock, and like the only way that they can come up with the whole storyline is like, remember, what Leonard Nimoy did to McCoy.
I guess, I'm interested that your thought...
Didn't get that reference.
Yeah, I got it.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I do.
They just said it so they'll think up another storyline so they can have something to get it.
Okay.
I'm going back here. Wow, it just goes on forever.
I'm curious what you... I don't know how they cannot bring Teddy back. That seems like such a weird, just dismissive way to just toss him up there and never come back.
Here's a good way that they can bring him back, I think. Maybe one of those little balls is Teddy that she carries with him.
That's technically possible.
Because she loves him.
Although I give you an argument against it too, if you want.
Because she realizes...
We have reason to believe that the mind balls of the host that went into the Sublime came back wiped. If that process is consistent, when she put his thing in there and put his mind in it, his ball would technically be wiped.
Gone.
Unless, because she did it differently and he didn't walk through the door like everyone else did, unless that process somehow explains why it would be different.
Did she duplicate him?
So the ball... Is the ball virtually connected to it, or is it like a USB?
That's how I took it.
So she could theoretically have the one version of him still.
Assuming,
but we saw the visual of him in the Sublime.
That's what I mean. Is she took
copied
the consciousness?
We have reason to believe that once the consciousness is transferred to the Sublime, the ball is empty. Because when they recovered the body hosts. When they recovered the bodies of the hosts that had went to the Sublime, they made a comment about how they're completely wiped. So we have reason to believe that Teddy's body would be no different.
I think she did a DVD. She did a DVD rip. She did a rip.
Say he's coming back.
Well, but this is where I think how they can bring him back. They bring him back as a Logan instead of Cyclops. But his consciousness is in Wolverine's body the whole time. And it's happening like, what am I going to do, man?
We need to start betting steak dinners here.
Yeah.
For 2 years in the future.
Yeah, we should. No, we're definitely not doing that because I will lose. Every single thing I've said is wrong. I'm I do kind of want to talk about Maeve because just saying she's going to wake up is like, well, yeah, I would assume so.
I thought you asked do we think she's coming back. I don't think she's just going to wake up.
Okay, yeah. It's really like what is the path forward? Because I feel like the first half of this season was so strong on Maeve stuff and her pursuit and then going to Shogun World and coming back and finding her daughter. And I guess the arc that she saved her daughter was... I mean, it's a pretty good arc that she preserves her daughter, sacrifices herself, but
all she does is send her daughter to heaven. I mean,
that's all.
If she really loved her, she'd
put her
in Coke.
Yeah. All right, I'm just gonna stop talking. I already am regretting.
Prime.
I do think it was kind of I don't know how to feel about the door scene. I like what it symbolizes and the ideas that come from it, but it was also how it was displayed felt so
contrived.
Yeah, and it was less metaphorical. Like I kind of hoped and liked so much about the show, and it was literally here's a rip that only hosts can see, and we're gonna run through it, and the mind at this point is gonna dissolve into heaven.
But I think that's a very beautiful visual of a symbolic representation of what it could be like to go to heaven. You know what I mean? If there is a heaven, if there's such a thing.
It set the stage for some extremely interesting imagery, right? And metaphorical references. The Horsemen of the Apocalypse with Clementine riding on a horse in death and destruction, just basically following in her wake.
And the Exodus of Egypt.
The whole Exodus of Egypt reference. The fact of there being a door and kind of having a sci-fi element to it.
The Remy of City on the Edge of Forever, or whatever.
It checked a lot of boxes as far as kind of interesting and compelling imagery. In a situation like this where you're dealing with the transferring of data, it could have also been where they just line up, someone takes their USB drive, plugs it in, next. I mean, you could have made a really boring version of it, but why?
Fair point.
If I was going to criticize anything, I do agree with the criticism that they're making such a Horseman of the Apocalypse reference, and then they had to put a button on it by making Charlotte Hale say something along the lines of...
That's a Jonathan Nolan...
It's a ham and a fist.
Jonathan Nolan he's really good, but you can see it in Christopher Nolan's movies that he has some bad lines. He has occasional he's got some good lines and some bad lines, some pretentious lines, like just come on, dude. Mm-hmm. And he has some bad writing, like that didn't make any sense. The one bad thing I didn't like that just like made me so mad it didn't make sense was that stupid guy when they were in the cradle, like the stupid he's gonna make out with the host. They're all crazy. You wouldn't do that. You just shoot the host. You just shoot the host before it blows up the cradle.
I did hear some commentary that it was referenced, but it was real subtle, and I didn't even remember hearing it, that he couldn't fire weapons in there because it would all explode. It was explosive. And so he had some instruction not to fire. That doesn't mean he needed to go out and make out with the sex robot.
It was just stupid. But, you could have stabbed her. You could have like your logic didn't make sense there, and like it went against it was a thing that bothered me. Like it's that thing when like that doesn't make sense in a movie. Like the one big glaring thing that reminded me of that was in Prometheus when like the two scientists who were like real scientists are going to play with the snake that's going to bite them. Like, hey, Snakey. That doesn't make sense.
If Elon Musk wasn't able to resist, how was that guy supposed to?
Yeah, you're right. How doesn't Elon got his Musk? Courage.
So, I'm not done with Maeve yet, because I pieced it together in my head. So...
He wasn't listening at all.
Well, because I want to talk about the show.
Oh my God, I was talking about the show in terms of reference. Disable all motor functions.
Yeah.
Freeze all motor.
So
I'm disabled.
So Maeve, the idea that she saves her daughter, I feel like that has happened. That's almost kind of her loop in this season. Like wasn't the whole idea that she tapped into other people to help save her daughter?
Yeah,
that happened, right?
Yeah. Is there a question? I agree with this.
That did happen. Yeah. Okay. So it was getting to a point where she was almost competing with Dolores. Mm-hmm. Like they were setting it up that they had different visions for how to handle people.
That was a head fake, in my opinion, that they did in the first half of the season. We got set that we knew that Maeve was all powerful. We knew that Dolores was, if not all powerful, was all consuming or whatever. Yeah. And we had this feeling that the unstoppable force and the immovable object was going to be, and it was a swerve, in my opinion, because they weren't destined to go up against each other.
No. And they make that with Arnold and her. So like Arnold and her, like
that's
that,
where we end
and
up.
she has that's that like so that's what the irony of Batman and the Joker. Batman is Arnold or Bernardo, and the Joker is the Chaos is her, and like she can't exist without him, and that's why she brings him back, even though they know they're going to be adversaries. So that was the immovable object, but the unstoppable force.
So what you had you had a comparison for those two too.
But are you talking about
Bernard and
Dolores? I think where we end up is very much an X-Men situation where you have two entities who are in this
Professor
case
X,
bots instead of mutants. What did I say?
Professor X and
Magneto. Right. Where Dolores is kind of the part of Magneto, which is she is a mutant, or in this case a bot, who's very much for violence and destroy all humans.
We are the future, Charles, not them.
Where Bernard is also a mutant, or in this case a bot, and is for, no, we can coexist, or we don't have to destroy them to survive. Yeah. We're better than that type of thing. And I think it sets up that dynamic. I don't necessarily claim to know where exactly they're going to go with it, but I do think that's interesting.
I think that's good, but why does is it because...
ask your question first.
So why does Dolores keep Bernard? Why does she feel like Bernard, they need to coexist? Why doesn't she just get rid of him? Is it because she has
she completes him.
She created him and has like an affection or connection with him in some way. I
think what we're led to believe, or what we're led to understand, is that she did that because she's not a human. A human in that situation is going to be win at all costs.
She did say that.
Don't even bring it much. She is specifically doing that because she feels like, or she acknowledges that her way, even though she believes it and is going to follow it, is not necessarily to everyone's greater good. Let me give you another analogy. You could have two parents with a child, and both of them have different ways that they think they need to view it, but they might both agree that the child needs to get influence from both.
Well,
she could say that robot kind is going to be better off with both forces in there, even if she has a very specific and anti position that he is and how to approach it.
I think it's an interesting argument, but I don't think that's I don't think that is it.
Has any another way? Has any warrior basically said, "I got to be the person who goes and does the bad thing, even though I know once the war's over, I shouldn't be in charge"?
Well, this is my thought of why she brought him, and I think your point is a very good, valid point, and probably right, but maybe not.
So, yeah.
But my thought is this: she created him, and in essence, he created her. There is a connection, an admiration for each other,
sure.
a love for each other. And the biggest flaw that she has is to keep him, because she still loves him. She still wants him around. I don't think she wants him to do it, but she always, just like Professor X and the admiration between Professor X and Magneto. They still love each other. If Magneto really wanted to, he just would kill Professor X, because he could easily do it. You know what I mean? But he doesn't, because it's like they don't want them to really be there, but because their love for one another is there, the flaw, the human condition, the error that she makes is an error on her part, and more human on her part.
I think that's a valid opinion. In my opinion, she views herself as the a-hole needed to win the war, but not necessarily to lead the peace once it's over.
Do you think she ultimately feels like he's right? And that she, in order to get to the coexistence, it's almost like you need the bad guy.
Now we're going really far off track here as far as what I feel like we're given evidence for.
Sure.
But if I had to try to
let's go into prediction for
if I had to try to paint the lines, I think she's necessary to defeat the humans, and I think she feels that Bernard's necessary for what comes after that.
That's not a bad idea.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
Okay, back to my Maeve thing.
Sure.
Because I will not let that go. Now I forget. So, never mind.
If you could change your own code, would you, and what would you change? Because Bernard literally deletes and changes his program.
I would change this inner tube around my waist first, and then pay off all my student loans.
So we were talking about this, how they swerved, kind of. You're talking about the swerve and how all of a sudden it's like they kind of went this way, and then all of a sudden,
the opposing forces.
Dolores is now running with Bernard, and so I felt like she has this like all-knowing power to control people and control people who are not awoken yet, and really it was just used for one solo drive, which I guess is interesting, and it's kind of the completion of the arc, I suppose. But
you're talking about Maeve still.
Yeah.
It did have limitations though, so she couldn't control Ghost Nation.
Yeah,
she appeared to have some limitations on extremely woke targets.
Right. Yeah.
What about she could? I guess she couldn't control the horsemen, like effect on each other.
She couldn't control Clementine. No.
I don't know that she tried, right? Because Clementine was shot before she did the little.
Yeah, and Clementine had her powers too.
Very focused, right? She basically had an element of but there was like she had a single.
But how can she not combat that? How can she not fight that?
I don't know that we know if she could or not.
Yeah.
I get this is really just.
And then when Clementine died, it took over all of them.
It was like a virus that kept spreading.
So it didn't matter.
Killing Clementine was not enough, right?
Yeah.
Right. I guess this is really just.
Oh my darling.
It felt like they had a path for Maeve, and to your point, deviated to another one where it was like, oh, we have one too many characters. It's going to be Bernard, and now I don't really know what Maeve is here for. I don't really know what her even what she represents. Like she's just here. Well, she was there to complete a task. It was almost they rewrote her destination as complete your core drive or your core arc only, which feels very much like you're still locked into. Even though it was a choice, so I don't know. I'm kind of confused about
Here's
her.
my volley, my ping to your pong. I know that's racist probably nowadays, but my volley. Let's just say volley.
Only now, if so.
Yeah. Now that I've made note to it. So season 1, she was given the code to leave Westworld. She was right there. until she's the seed of her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She actually was programmed to do that, and she chose to break
To
it.
go back.
That's where
Yeah.
her sin.
So this whole season was to save her daughter. She did it. Now, she's going back to that point. What does she do now?
I think that's
Now-
his question.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was her arc this whole season. Now it's like,
So
all
you
right.
both asked the question. You want the answer?
But I'm saying now maybe she will be the antithesis against
Dolores.
Dorothy.
I personally, here's what I would like to have happen, and then I can tell you why it's not, unfortunately. I would like for her to basically be the right-hand person or to team up with Bernard. Right? And maybe we don't see that until late in season 3, where things look down and it looks like Bernard's going to lose to Dolores or somehow is not able to do whatever, and then she comes in and kind of helps turn the tide and evens it up, setting up season 4. That's what I'd like to have happen. My concern is, because they literally left her physically in Westworld, my concern is I'm not sure how much she's still going to be how long will they keep her in Westworld before they pull her out into modern day world?
Yeah.
Or does she remember anything? Maybe that's another thing. Like, will she?
I don't think we have reason to believe that one more death was going to change her memory cycle. I'm not saying it's not possible, but they would, in my opinion, they would need to explain it because she's died plenty of times in that.
When they, it'll be interesting to see how they go forward from the So in this season, it's almost like Gala, where a horrible thing happened. The park is crazy, and not. How much time do you think elapsed between that and the beach?
I think we know it's been approximately 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks passed.
Give or take. But
So they haven't even gotten to the point of like, what do we do now with the park and all these, we're going to salvage these hosts.
They're just now starting to think about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of open questions about, maybe she will get wiped, who knows. But to their point, she's got the 2 cats with her to preserve her. So
we have no reason to believe that anybody left alive is aware of enough of the scope of the problem they had to know that they need to clean and wipe everything.
yeah,
right?
Maybe Stubbs.
The big reason why Westworld would continue would be if they don't wipe everything and the problem isn't really fixed.
So is Stubbs the security guard?
Yeah.
Who we assume is a host. Basically, that's what he said to.
I think
he knew that Dolores was Dolores.
We're definitely very clearly shown that he knew that Charlotte was a host, and I think it's heavily hinted that yes, he is
a host. You can sense it.
I think both those statements are true, but it's
and she kind of
one is 100%, the other is like 95%.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out that it was like the most cold-blooded death in the whole thing was what's her name killing Bernard's. I can't remember their names. I'm so bad with it.
Charlotte killing Elise.
Elsie. Yeah. It was a shock to me how cold blooded it was.
It was a shock to Bernard too. Had a big
yeah. He's like revenge.
That sealed the
yeah,
fate. You could argue that sealed the fate of humans.
Yeah. But me. Side note. This could be negative, but what's the actress's name who plays her?
Shannon Woodward.
No.
Tessa Thompson.
She's terrible.
She's a
terrible actress.
I disagree.
She's so bad.
I disagree.
Can we make our point?
You don't like her either?
No. I don't like her very much, especially not.
No, I think she's not. I think she's just. I don't know. Like it's like we were kind of mad. Like, oh no, now Dolores is in her body. We're gonna get her the whole season. Like
you've been getting her the whole season, and you can actually see differences in the character.
But my point was like when Dolores was. We really know how the actress who played Dolores is actually a really good actress, really good. And then when she's trying to portray Dolores, when we realized Dolores is like, oh god, this is so forced. It wasn't very good. So I don't think she's I think she's an okay actress alongside with a lot of good actresses and actors that shows off how bad she is.
Anthony Hopkins, I'm not saying that.
No, or
Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright, yeah.
Jeffrey Wright, I think, is in the upper tier. There are upper tier actors, and then there are lesser tier. I think maybe you have 4 upper tier. I'm not sure I'd put Rachel Wood in the upper tier personally.
What about what's her name? Maeve. She's
I would
great.
put Tandy Newton in the upper tier.
Tandy Newton good. I think even Cyclops is good. Like they're upper tier comparatively. They don't take me out.
Now you get in the area of how much is them and how much was the writing for their character. But
sure. So what?
It's all good writing.
We have not spent any time talking about the Forge and all the scenes with Logan and what that meant, and the James Delos going through loops. Maybe that was super clear to everybody. Maybe there's no questions. But
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. Well, then
no. And what are you unclear on? Maybe.
I don't feel like I am unclear, but I felt like I listen to all sorts of different podcasts and stuff, and I felt like there were a lot of people that were unclear, like why was Logan the face of the simulation and things like that, which I feel like there's pretty compelling reasons to say why, but I don't know.
Because it just formed it because of the consciousness of it was just. I think it was
his core. I mean, it relates back to like the
James
thing
Delos'
Delos' path always
Forge was
anchors
built
to.
to house human data and to study the humans. The first human it had was James Delos. His primary core was, I thought it was very interesting that they talk about the whole subject of whether or not humans have free will.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
the fact that humans are only, 10,247 lines of code? And the fact that the code was like the piano music.
We're actually shockingly simple.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with that that assessment. I think we do have free will. And this is a whole other can of worms for another talk. There's a lot of people,
Will there be another talk?
Oh, yeah.
If not, then it's for this talk.
Okay. But I'm saying, so free will is a very complex. I don't think we all even understand what free will is and the definition of things. But to say that human beings don't have free will, I think is wrong. I think we do have free will. There's probably different degrees of free will. Like, obviously, if you're in a car and you have to react, there's less degrees of free will there because you're just reacting to things. But the longer something, the farther away something is that you can react to, the more free will you have in general.
Here's an open question for you, philosophical. If I knew every decision you're going to make, I knew the outcome of every single decision without fail, do you have free will?
No, I wouldn't. But you don't know every decision I'm going to make. That's the whole point.
But that gets philosophical. If you believe there is a God who is omniscient and knows the outcome of everything, do you have free will?
But it's more complex than that, though. That's
my question, being as complex or not that it is, if you believe that me having omniscience means you have no free will, how is that different if you believe there is a God that has omniscience?
Well, I don't know if I believe that or not.
Well, right.
That's my whole point.
That's fair.
But I'm not. But I'm also saying, like, I don't like our minds and the way we can conceive things are very limited, and we're not using the full frequency of our minds.
Well, there is another debate, right? The whole argument of whether or not that percentage of how much we use our brains is
But there are probably lines of there's probably realities that we can't even see right now.
I happen to agree with you, by the way. If there is such a thing as omniscience, where every outcome is known, then any understanding or belief in free will, in my opinion, is fiction. If the outcome is known, in my opinion, it's not free will. So I actually agree with your first statement that if you had omniscience of every choice I was going to make, that free will by
But what if it's multifaceted choices? What if it's like the omniscience?
If you knew the outcome, regardless of how many different options there were.
But that's so say if there's a higher.
Are you disagreeing now with yourself?
No, I'm saying there's a higher being of power. I'm saying, like, I don't know what to believe. There's a higher being of power. Something that's beyond us.
I know what you meant by higher being of power.
That is we
can't
fathom
about it.
It's in the valley.
What is the concept of multifaceted, multi-choice omniscient? So it's like
omniscience is an absolute, right? I don't think there's any such thing as limited omniscience.
But you just know every single thing,
no matter how faceted.
But you know every single thing, but you don't know what in the moment that's everything that's going to choose. I'm saying that it's more complex.
Yeah, well, it's like a watch. Isn't that the watchmaker idea? Is that there's a higher power that creates the things that then go off and do it. They're not involved in everything. Does that like?
But the argument isn't that the watchmaker in that case has omniscience.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
To me,
that seems to be what you're kind of starting to suggest, though.
But you agreed with me that if I had omniscience, it would mean you didn't have free will. You agreed with me at the beginning.
Yeah, but maybe omniscience is more. I mean, maybe knowing everything is also knowing nothing at the same time. You know what I mean? Knowing.
I do not know what that means.
Well, like knowing. It's more complex than our higher little pea brains can even.
Oh, I don't doubt there's concepts we don't understand.
But even the word,
the concept of omniscience, which is all-knowing, I feel like is absolute.
But I'm saying, like, it's not absolute because
I mean, by definition, you could say it's not a real thing, but
by
man's
concept definition is absolute. But the man's concept of what omniscient.
The definition of the word omniscience
is absolute.
Is absolute knowledge or forethought.
But I'm thinking it could be more than omniscient. Could be more than that. The higher being of power. If there is a greater power than us, it's more complex than that. It knows everything, but doesn't know everything at the same time.
As far as the pea brain stuff, you are right about me. If I don't know what you mean, what you would be referring to if you refer to a greater omniscience. Like omniscience is like the definition of all. There's not like a more all or an all plus.
Well, I think this is just semantics at this point,
Sure.
and we're going to get caught in the gutter. But
I feel like it's really related to the free will.
Well, yeah. I mean, I still feel even just on you can disagree, but it raises interesting questions to me about what things are kind of like at any point. Are you going to do something 100%, like a total 180 of your character just to do it? Would you you can still kind of predict things, and that's kind of what.
But I think you do. I think you can and you do. I think there's going to be something.
Do you run down? Do you strip naked and then sing?
Yeah, but
French.
But they made reference to that in the show, right?
Yeah.
They talked about through the however many million simulations they did of James Delos, what we would define as sane was actually a very limited narrow of options. Even though he had multiple different options he could have taken, for us to say James Delos is sane was such a narrow band of options that the human condition was very simple by comparison. Mm-hmm. Now, it's meant to be a mind bender. There's no pure answer to it.
No, that's just one philosophy out of many philosophies. The choice of free will and complexity of man. I think we're really
They're
complex.
definitely intentionally bringing it up.
I know, but I also think, in essence, philosophically speaking, we are more complex creatures than that. And I think we do have free will. I think
the show is trying to put you down, Ben.
No, but
personally,
I think, and to answer your question, Matt, that when you say go around stripped naked, well, there's I'm talking about choices that you make in your life. You know what I mean? That's not against you.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
I think that's an extreme example because there's more to play at that. That's social norms and things.
That's
like
what
that.
I'm getting. That's the whole point of the show.
Yeah, in Westworld, they were showing you shooting somebody for no reason. That's outside of social norms. That is an extreme
That's more
choice.
than social norm. That's a moral.
What is social norms other than?
Social norm is like going in the elevator and looking at the door instead of the people. That's
Well, it's a social norm also not to shoot someone for sneaking.
Yeah, but that's more than social norm.
The thing that I find so interesting is that they can rewrite themselves to any within the cultural You have to have an awareness of socially the culture you're in or what the environment is. They can literally strip that out. That's the level of control they really have in terms of free will. The hosts themselves have something that human beings do not have,
that's why they're the ability to change their coordinates.
Right, and so that's what is so. That's why the show's so. That's why the idea of them being a new species, a more evolved and that's where it seems the direction is with the end credits scene seems to be, or at least suggests that maybe they're successful. Maybe they.
It could be the reverse, right? It could be the humans
who knows?
Trying to understand how did we accidentally create the robots so we don't.
That's very true too.
It could be. Yeah.
I don't know. When this season started, it was kind of all about we talked a lot in our pre-show about immortality and kind of very specific about where the characters go and them just getting to the real world. But really, it went in a direction I wasn't expecting with them as a species, and what does it mean to not just have an identity, but how to reproduce and stuff. And I don't know. I think that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think it was an interesting concept overall. Even though I don't agree with the philosophical idea of free will, I thought it was a cool concept of.
You don't agree with free will?
No, their concept of free will.
Their definition saying that humans don't have it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I think it's a great flip of the switch, lazy Susan, switcheroo. That the people you think that wouldn't have free will, the host, the control, these people who are programmed to do the same thing over and over and over again, are the ones that break the free will and then. Really,
well, they don't at the beginning of the show, right? It's only after they kind of get woke or sentient. Or
but the people who do have free will, are not really exercising the free will, but the host are.
It's only through intervention.
Nature of your reality, Ben?
I've always
It's a show it's asked since the beginning of the season. Every
day. Are we in a simulation?
No, but in all seriousness, those are definitely the questions they're shooting for. The type of discussion we're having, that is absolutely intentional.
There's a reason Jake every single time is like, let me go into philosophical mode. Yeah.
We miss you.
We'll just have a Jake picture come on here.
Hashtag save Jake. Remake Jake. Hashtag remake Jake.
Well, it's a very interesting merge, as confusing as it kind of got at the end, where it opens up. It's like, here's we started this episode with, here's the small puzzles we're kind of putting together over a long time. Mm-hmm. To me, there's like now 20 more puzzles.
Do that noise again. There you go.
There's 20 more raptor puzzles. But it's still. I know I had an issue with how literal the door to the sublime kind of was, and there's artistic reasons you do that to visualize this, but they still were able to, even in the finale, as troubling as it was, they still were able to bring home those sci-fi themes and mix in the philosophical elements and open up more questions, honestly, and how it also still relates to like a theological element, like or a higher power element, like, and how the only reason there's always been this intervention that leads to other things, and so I think that's still very interesting.
Well, and that's the whole purpose of the show, right? Is to get us asking those and thinking about those questions. Because if you boil it down to actually just the plot mechanics, Dolores crossed the desert twice to get a key. She crossed it the first time to get the key out of Peter Abernathy. She then went back to the forge. Bernard shot her. He then rebuilt her in the Mesa as Charlotte. She then went to the forge to get the key again. She crossed the desert twice to get a key. If you boil it down, the metaphysical stuff that it's specifically asking. Dolores.
Dale.
Dale Loris.
But she's a pretty good actress, actually. She was very believable as a android.
Tessa Thompson? Yeah, you're right.
No, Tessa Thompson's not believable in anything. And I'm trying to like her. I think she was fine at Thor Ragnarok. I think that kind of silly movie works for her, but like she's just, I don't know, she's just not a good, believable actress. You know? I'm sorry.
Speaking of actually good, believable actresses, we haven't talked about Sizemore yet, and his... It's a ridiculous scene where he sacked the writer guy.
That was bad.
I love that though.
Section.
I like that. I don't care.
I liked his arc that he turned around, but he could have just like surrendered. Like that would make more sense. Okay, you got him free. Now I'm just going to surrender.
Did you like that it was a callback to season 1, episode 1?
No, I didn't get that.
If you remember in season 1, episode 1, Hector's about to give this big speech and he gets shot in the head.
Oh right, yeah.
And Lee says, "I had this great speech."
And then he's like, "That's my speech."
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it was a great speech personally, but I thought it was interesting that they
get out of here.
All right.
I like though that
one time I get to use that degree in speech comm.
Yeah. I like that he had an arc, but I didn't like how it was just like. Okay.
To your point, he didn't need to die to get.
No, he bought him time,
and he did death by cop, but for no reason.
The thing though that for me is that he still didn't need to die in order for this to come through, but he kind of is part of, to the credit of them for Maeve's path going forward. So I'm kind of admitting I'm wrong in having a blind spot for how well her arc was, but he kind of represents how she can relate to the humans in the world and how that will then play through with Bernard.
Well, so you can make an argument that Maeve had an impact on Lee Sizemore without having control over him. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's what you're saying. That ultimately became, well, she had control over him, but she could also see.
But she didn't have control over his emotions, right? He came to respect and like Maeve and want to support Maeve, even without her like flipping his code or whatever.
Right, but there's this, I don't know, there was the whole part of, it seemed like she had a similar philosophy as Bernard does in that they can coexist together, and that they have humans have value too, despite all the like horrific things she's been through with human beings.
Right.
So that could have been done a little bit, tied together a little bit better at the end, but you see kind of the interpersonal relationship she had with them. So, anything else we haven't talked about yet about maybe the finale or where the show's going to go?
Yeah, nice hat. Very festive.
Thank you.
Where'd you get that? The
It's
Indiana
doing a-
Jones shop?
I'm just
doing
gonna.
a brain scan.
Yeah, it is. I'm just gonna throw it in a puddle and film it.
There's nothing in here.
Okay.
So when's season 3 kicking off? When's our next podcast?
Well, we'll do, just like we said for Game of Thrones, we'll
Game
just
of
go
Thrones
back and do a
first.
pod for every single one and never do it.
Yeah. Game of Thrones next.
Yeah, that will be nice.
Da, da, da,
I have the Game of Thrones music box. I should have brought. This would have been a good time for that.
Okay, yeah,
Aw,
really tease it
man.
out for
Could've.
like a year
I
from
really
now.
could've.
Well, thanks everybody for listening or watching all season for our thoughts about Westworld Season 2. And tune in whenever it was for Season 3.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Uh-huh.